join on, but we can get started. We can do some intros first. I'm happy to introduce myself. I'm Jen Coons. I am, well, now I'm a manager at PlayStation. That's a relatively recent thing. I had been before that a consultant, mostly on the data collection side, mostly focused on Adobe stuff. Since I started at Omniture in 2006, been kind of the same role. So yeah, a lot of the tag management or data collection issues or questions that come up, I'll be happy to answer, as well as, solution designy type of stuff. Jeff, you want to introduce yourself?
Oh, you're on mute, Jeff.
You're muted.
I even tapped on the button and it still didn't work, of course. So I must be very technically challenged today. So fortunately that doesn't, well, I don't know. Anyway, we'll just get started. Sorry. So Jeff Bloomer, I am now the supervisor of digital analytics at Cardinal Health. I was actually at Kroger for over 11 years. I was the manager of digital analytics there. I'm doing a lot of the same things at Cardinal Health. Actually, I'm doing even more on the implementation, tagging, support side there. I'm actually I'm supporting their pharmaceutical side. So they have a bunch of different, I should say, departments there. So I'm supporting their pharmaceuticals area. So so I will go ahead and pass it on to the next person.
I can go next, everyone. I'm Kat. I'm a 3X Adobe Analytics champ. I run the product analytics arm at Shift Labs, which is a consulting agency based out of Toronto, Canada. I'm working with some major US retailers. And before Shift Labs, I was at Home Depot, Canada. And I'll pass it off to Megan. Oh, you're on mute, Megan. 2 out of 4 today.
Oh boy, sorry. Hi, I'm Megan Powers. I'm also a 3X Adobe champ, and I work at CarMax. I've been here almost a decade, which is crazy. And I lead a team called Digital Data Strategy here at CarMax. We're responsible for doing all the tagging of all of CarMax's digital properties. So we own Adobe Analytics, Adobe Target, Launch, Google Analytics, Full Story, etc. So, yep, happy to be here. Happy to answer any questions.
I can share my screen, but before we jump in, just a bit of housekeeping, because I don't think we mentioned it before. But if you haven't been to an Adobe Analytics office hour session before, this is an open forum where anyone can come and ask questions to our Adobe Analytics champs. We have a couple pre-submitted questions through the survey or through experience link that we found, but we will also keep an eye on the chat for any questions that pop up there, and we'll answer those live. And the session is being recorded, and it'll be available on our YouTube channel for you to review later. Okay, I will share my screen. Okay, I will zoom in too. Okay, so the first question, what are list vars and how do you use them?
I suspect we all have something to say on this.
Yeah. Jeff, do you want to start, since you were the most prepared of us and actually put content into the workspace?
Right. Yeah, or I'm happy to as well. But so list vars are a dimension, just like we have props for traffic and evars technically for conversion. List vars are an ability to pass multiple values at once. So a really common use case for them is something like maybe banner impressions or anything where maybe a search results page or something like that. For a long time, if we're going back in Omniture history, the only way to pass multiple values would be through the product stream. So unless you wanted to put your internal banners into product string, there weren't many good options. Then they introduced list vars. We only have 3 of them, so they are a very limited resource. And Jeff linked to a really good post about how there are some very good alternatives out there that you can use if you run out of list vars. But the if you wouldn't mind clicking on that second article in there, this one walks through really well because there are some quirks to list vars. Their persistence particularly. So if I send, let's see, let's just scroll down. I guess I'll just tell you when to stop. So you could set your, list 1 equals, and then each of the names of the banners that you want. Here we go. Here we go. This is good. Those 3 little charts that you just went by. Scroll a little bit more. Perfect. There. So this is what it might look like if I wanted to track impressions on internal banners using a list var. So list 1 equals, and then each of the different values that you want. I think you can even define what the delimiter is. So if you want a comma or you want a pipe or something like that. So you could set an event for impressions, and then when somebody clicks, you could set list 1 to just the thing that was clicked on, and set an event for the click. And then maybe later on, hopefully you're already tracking conversions and things like that. So this is the quirk I was talking about that you would expect in this case. You'd want to see impressions for 1, 2, 3 banners 1 through 4, and only 1 click for, 1 click for banner 1 and 1 conversion for banner 1. But the way that list vars work is depending on your persistence, if you had them set up to persist at all, you might get all 4 of those banners kind of hanging around and sticking through to the conversion. So if you're using a list var, they are very useful, but I tend to only use them with an expiration of same hit. That does mean I lose that conversion later on unless I do something fun with segmentation. But that way, the fact that, like, if you're using it for impressions or something like that, your impressioned banners aren't going to hang around and get credit for everything that lasts afterwards. It's not like other variables where if a new, in this case on the clicks, we set list 1 to banner 1, that didn't overwrite everything that was said on the impressions. They all just coexist happily because they're a list. So in that case, you might say, why might I not just use a list prop instead? Every prop, all 75 of them, can be turned into a list, but that has character limitations for how many values you can set, or just how many characters can be in there. So if you had 4 banners, you'd have to split those up into small amounts of characters and things like that. That's the general idea. I'm trying to think right now of what a really good use for a list var is, knowing that it has this catch for that they like to coexist and they don't really override each other. So if you want persistence, you have to just be careful.
I have a couple of use cases that we use them for that I can share. We use them 2 ways right now. One is that we have an integration with Qualtrics, which is the third-party vendor we use for like web survey feedback, right? That integration actually requires the use of a list var to do the integration. Back, I don't know if you guys remember when data connectors used to be a thing. That was really easy to do the integrations. Now data connectors don't exist, but they still require, it's like an event, an evar, and a list var. And so what the list var does for that is it puts the survey name, the survey question, and then the response in piped format. And that's how it comes in and for us. And then it can also, we can break out just the survey name, just the survey question, just the survey response. So that's one big use case that we use it for. That's been really helpful to slice and dice all those survey answers and compare them against all our web data. Like if people are promoters versus detractors, like rating it a good experience versus bad experience. What else do they do in their web session? Are they what's their page depth? How many pages are they getting to? types of pages are they going to. We can use the segment comparison tool for like a promoter and a detractor. We can use calculated metrics and determine our NPS score based on that stuff. So really, really powerful. The second use case we use it for is error tracking. So
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yep, we capture anytime like something goes wrong, right? On the website, in various places, we capture an error, and we capture like what page the customer's on, what thing they were trying to do, like button click or form field or whatever. And then we capture the message that was shown to the customer, and then also our technical backend reason as well, right? Because sometimes just the customer might see, I'm sorry, we're having a problem. But on the back end, there could be 5 different reasons why that failed. It could be like a malicious attempt, could be it just a wrong username, could be something on our end that we might not want to display to the customer, but we can use that to do our own analysis. So that's a good, again, like that's pipe separated with all those things in there. So we can slice and dice all the data.
So sorry, you're saying for each, say, error, you would have page action message and then comma and then another error with the page action message. Does that question make sense? Or are you saying that these are each different items in the list var?
Yeah, they're all within like the one list var value, just pipe delimited. So it's like page, pipe, click, or form field,
Yeah.
pipe, friendly customer message, pipe, Carmex technical backend, error.
And then would you have like a comma and then maybe the same information again for another error? Or is pipe your delimiter? Sorry if I'm just making this more
Yeah,
confusing.
pipe is our delimiter.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
the report that you get from that would have all of those as individual items.
Yep.
Gotcha. Interesting.
Yep.
And noteworthy, I just looked it up to confirm, but list vars themselves have no character limitation, but each individual item in it has a 255 byte, just like evars do, limitation. Whereas if you were trying to use a list prop, everything you put in it would have to be 100 characters or less.
Cool. Anything else have anything to add about list vars?
Jeff dropped another link in there. Maybe we can put that in the chat. I'm actually gonna bookmark them myself.
Those
Sometimes
two
it does get tricky to try to explain like, what the heck they are and why you would use
right.
them versus a evar or prop. So yeah, I'm gonna save that and then just send that link.
Okay. Yeah, I just threw both of those links in the chat.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
And they can be classified just like other variables. They have, persistence and you can tweak their attribution, and really they can do everything an evar can do. It's just, like I said, be careful about the persistence because they don't overwrite each other if you send a new value in a new beacon. So they are handy.
Nice. Okay, we'll move on to this next question about static benchmarks and visualizations. So I think this was an experience leak question, but the asker was wanting to know if I wanted page views per visit to be 3 as a benchmark, but right now they were reporting as 2.1, and I wanted to track that progress in relation to my benchmark on a line chart, for example. That's seemingly not possible. Instead, the best I can do is look at previous real world performance as a dynamic benchmark. But they just want a solid constant number they can throw into a free format calculated metric to make some benchmark visualizations. understand the merits of a dynamic benchmark that are built on previous performance, but they wanted a sanity check after some research. Should I pull up the Experience League post for this one?
Yeah, if nothing else, just because it has nice visualizations in it.
Okay.
But our fellow champion, Jen Dungan, who is also like the queen of wonderful answers on Experience League, had a good answer on here that there is a way to create a calculated metric that has a static number in it. So if you want the report to always just have the number 3 as the line that you're working towards, then the recommendation here would be to create a calculated metric. And you can scroll down just a little bit. I think Mandy, another champion
Oh.
of answering with great answers on Experience League, showed a way that you can do that. So it's a little hard to see, but when you can just create a new calculated metric that is a static number. I don't know if it's possible for us to even just demonstrate
Oh,
what
yeah, true.
creating that looks like.
Yeah, and I've done this a lot, like for our own benchmarks, where like this is our baseline that we want to compare against, like for like a quarterly OKR, for example. Like here, this is our Q1 baseline versus our Q1 goal, and those are static numbers, and we can, and then so we have both of those plugged in. So we've got like baseline and then goal, and then we have another metric that tracks like current or actual, and it fluctuates
Yep.
between those and hopefully trending upward towards goal.
So for those watching the recording, I'll show it from scratch. So created a metric, and then just dragged in or added a static number, and you can just put any number in there. Save. And try putting this into a freeform table.
And then if you put page views per visit, which is also just a metric that's already right there in the, yeah. Not super informative in a freeform table, but helps with visualization. So this demo data set is nowhere near our goal of 5 page views per visit.
Cool. All right, next question about analytics audits and a recommendation on how to do an analytics audit of EVARs and events.
So there's a few tools. It depends on what you're trying to accomplish. The data dictionary is built into Workspace. So on the left, in the left rail there's a little book that you can click on. This can be great for like checking out individual dimensions and metrics. It also has, maybe it's only for an admin, but there is also some things that are very helpful as far as spotting like what are similar things to this and where is it used and all of that. So this can be great. It is a little hard to use as a like auditing tool just because it includes everything from Adobe. So whether or not you are interested in mobile carrier, that's going to be listed here as one of the dimensions, and that's not something you're setting, nor is it something you need to worry about or would need to migrate to CJA or something. So that can be a bit pesky, that it's just got a whole lot in it. But for spot checking and looking at individual things, this is fantastic. Aside from that, there is the Adobe Analytics Health Dashboard, and I meant to put links in there. I can throw them in the chat here. This was something built by Adobe Consulting. Its maintenance is a little bit on and off, but usually the hardest part of using is just getting the authentication set up because this uses the Adobe APIs to pull information down. but it can give you a high level view across all of your dimensions, all of your metrics, what has data, what doesn't have data, what are some examples for each of your dimensions of the data that's coming in. Definitely recommend. I just threw a link to the Spark page about it, and within that you can go get the latest version of it and download it. And then finally, I got to throw out there a recommendation for Lucas Oldenburg has a tool called the Adobe Component Manager that is not officially affiliated with Adobe. I believe it's freemium now, that there are some great things you can do without even paying. It's a Google Sheet add-on, but it will use the Adobe APIs. Again, the hardest part is just the authentication and getting yourself set up for API access. But once you do that, it can pull down all of your components, dimensions, events, calculated metrics, segments, all of that, and show you which is being used where and all of that. I suppose I should throw a link in for that as well. I would also say Tactician is great from a data collection standpoint, but alas, I don't know if it's been updated to continue working in newer versions of Chrome. There are a few third-party tools that folks have made over the years, specifically for if you're using Adobe Launch or data collection tags, to help you see, where are different EVARs being set and things like that. So I'll see if I can find some links to tools that are still current and working. I have a Python script that works great in Jupyter Labs if you want. That'll give you a table of all of your Adobe Analytics variables and which rules they're set in, if that's what you're going for. Mindy asked, does that work for CJA as well? Which one? I don't think there is a CJA health dashboard yet, but there are different tools in CJA for managing components and things like that. Yeah, I don't know if any of these have a close equivalent in CJA, but I'll share some links maybe to similar tools that are helpful afterwards.
Yeah, we've tried getting the health dashboards on our side, but it's a I forget the word. It's a macro, and my company has just said nope, we're not
Yeah.
supporting those anymore. So there are some, could be some security issues with macro. So I kind of wish, they build it in a more friendly, modern way. But it looks awesome. Like health dashboards would be really, really cool. We haven't been able to get them. These are all great suggestions. The other thing you can do, it's a little, painful and manual, but is start with maybe like your highest priority page and just open up DevTools and see what fires on page load, click around, see what fires on your different links. Again, I mean, that's a pretty manual way, but and you can use DevTools, you can use Assurance. That's ASSURANCE. It used to be called Griffin in Adobe. That's particularly helpful if you have a mobile app, like a native app, to use Assurance, because that will hook up, from your phone to your computer, so you can see where things are firing. I don't know how much, documentation will help you after the fact if you're trying to do an audit, but as you're doing the audit, I would highly recommend, if you don't already have it, a really good solution design reference document, an SDR, that lists out every single custom EVAR, prop, and event you have, what page it lives on, what like Adobe launch rule it's in, if you have that, when it was added to the site, whether you have an alert on it, all that stuff. That's all documentation we have. So it's really easy for us to do an audit because we have that all there. Understand that, that's a lot harder if you don't already have that document. But if you're doing an audit, I would absolutely build out that document as you go so that you have it for the future.
Oh, great. And somebody responded in the comments that Brian now has had a LinkedIn post for the Git repo for CJA SDR tool. So
Awesome.
yay for Brian for that. And thank you, Josh, for sharing that. There's another tool, but only if you still have the old school web secret, like pre-Adobe APIs way of logging in. But I just linked to it, reportspeeds.com. A friend made it like well over a decade ago, but it still works so long as you know your client web secret from the older methods of getting to the Adobe APIs. And that'll just pull down a list of all of your variables across all of your report suites and what's enabled or not enabled.
I'm gonna check that out. That looks fun.
It looks like the copyright on it's 2017. You had mentioned Assurance. It's worth noting with Assurance that the AEP debugger tool, like Chrome extension, that is tied to Assurance. So if you're logged in, you can use the debugger as you go throughout your website, and it will store that session, and that'll be retrievable through Assurance in the Adobe interface.
Yeah.
And then,
go ahead.
And then I'm also going to be a dork and say, if you are gathering beacons from, the network tab and you want to put them into a table for documentation purposes and stuff, some silly girl created a beacon parser for that in 2016.
I have no idea who that is.
I know, right? It's on digitaldata-tactics.com. You can just Google beacon parser and it'll come up. There is a new version of it. You have to pay attention to the little text there at the top, but you can use that to import beacons from your network tab, and it'll make you a very nice searchable table that you can then export to Excel if you want.
I was gonna say, you can also, go into your Adobe Analytics admin and take a look at your, again, start with kind of like your priority report suite, right? But like, take a look at all your events, take a look at your EVARs, take a look at your props. You can start to kind of build out your documentation that way, see what's currently enabled versus not. And you can use that as a starting point to then go pull data in analysis workspace and see, like, okay, for these ones that are enabled, are they still collecting data? When's the last time they did collect data, to, again, kind of document that and build that out, so that in the future this type of audit isn't so painful. But that'll have a list of all of them that you have as well, and in a nice, like, organized list.
So lots of options there, and lots of things you can do through the API as well, if you're comfortable with the Adobe APIs. But I think we've got a collection of links in the chat in addition to the wonderful notes that Catherine's taken here.
All right, Jeff, I know you joined in partway through somewhere along the way. Anything else to add about analytics audits? Cool. All right, we'll go to the final question. Actually, do you want to take a pause and answer the question in chat that Mandy said there was?
What was that?
Okay. Wanted to check if there's a way to directly export a segment created in Adobe Analytics to RT-CDP. Oh, you guys are seeing this wormhole here. Sorry. Let me stop sharing for a second. I just didn't notice.
Yeah, I'd be interested, and I know Rajat can't take himself off of mute to answer and themselves, so sorry about that, but interested to know the use case, because usually I think of it the other way around of of what info from CDP can we bring into analytics. But unfortunately, I will freely admit that my expertise in real-time CDP is limited.
Let's see.
Right, they say, we have a TTL on anonymous data from an Adobe Analytics source connector in AEP. So in my mind, usually with either analytics or real-time CDP, if we're talking about segmentation and things like that, it's for, let's say, some other tool that is integrated with them, like AJO or something where we want to send emails to a particular segment of people. Since real-time CDP is not really a reporting interface, and then I don't know, please someone else speak up because I'm just going off of the minimal knowledge I have. But yeah, the action items of what you could do specifically in CDP with segment data from analytics versus the things that usually CDP is used for is, building out segments and other tools. When we want to create audiences with larger look back, but we don't have the data. Yeah, anyone else have any thoughts or ideas or?
I wish I
So in this
did.
case, you'd be taking advantage of the
I've
larger
not
look
had the
back
exposure.
that analytics has. So just confirming I can, yeah, there we go. Gotcha. So it's more that Adobe does a better job of, or sorry, the analytics can store and look back maybe with a bit more flexibility than real-time CDP. Is it as simple as exporting the ECIDs in those segments? And Mandy is linking to some good.
See, there you go. Mandy to the rescue.
Yeah, I'm just curious if something like this would be how I might do it if it were for Audience Manager or trying to share a segment with Target or something like that. But I don't know if this would work for real-time CDP. That's not me being doubtful. I just honestly don't know. So this one we might just need to follow up on, and thank you for your patience.
Yep.
Okay, let's flip back to our workspace. And then the last question about Segment Builder. Can you talk about Segment Builder, particularly about time sequence and time within and which container to use?
Say that again.
Let's see. So it sounds like they're asking about a sequential segment. And maybe this is too generic, but so there's there's an after or a within. So you can say like event A, then event B. You can say it has to happen after a certain X thing. It could be amount of time, could be a visit, could be a page view. Or so like, yeah, once you get that, then you have those different options. So if you click on one of those, you could, this A then B has to happen, within a week. You can say a visit, you can say a page view, time, a hit, etc. I use hit a lot, because if it's like the very next thing, that's what I want to track. Or you can just like select multiple dimensions. And then, yes, you can say it has to happen within this time or after this time. So only after A, then B happens, then I want to look at what happens. And then there's the concept of the include everyone versus include only before or only after, which can give you more depth in a similar direction, right? You say there's a sequence I want to look at, but the segment of people I want to pull is everyone who has the sequence happen, or only people who haven't yet done this sequence, or only people who have done this whole sequence. So I can give you more options to get even more granular and slice and dice and really only hone in on the exact segment of people you want to look at. I'm not sure.
I know the question specifically called out containers to use. So here we have a visit container, and like this is not me critiquing the on-the-fly demo here, but visit container probably would make a ton of sense for a then after 1 week.
True.
Yep.
So, but really, that was so insightful of you to do that so that we could talk about the fact that visit container most of the time, if you're doing a then X happens, you're going to be doing a visit or visitor container. Just because multiple things, there is no time sequence in a single hit. And whether to use visit or visitor really just comes down to, is it something that can happen over many weeks or something that you want to have happen within a visit where there's no longer than 30 minutes of inactivity from the user?
Well, usually once you start pushing, more than, if you're going to maybe hours, maybe visit, but well, even then, I would just, once you start pushing longer than what I would say, a couple of days, you're going to probably want to change that container to like visitor.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you're just gonna, because of that 30-minute visit thing, you're gonna really want to look at that visitor container. So that's what becomes extremely relevant. That must be the end of the day. I can't talk anymore. But yeah, that I think where they were saying where container is, a lot of times we're going to be getting into the visitor container when we start talking about these things, when we're the thens and the sequence and all that stuff. You just get into all of those other things. It sounds ambiguous, but visitor becomes very important when we talk about all that stuff.
I mean, that bug has bitten all of us, right? Like, why is there 0 data in my? Oh,
yeah. Yeah, your container, your
never
visitor
happened
container.
in the same visit,
Right.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
I will cancel out of that. Did we have any more questions coming through the chat?
There was one more.
Topic, so.
I did have one more thought. I guess I can share my screen, or if you wouldn't mind sharing your screen again.
Sure.
I was going to present as part of the skill exchange, and then I got a new job, and everything turned upside down. But really, it was a very small. Probably didn't merit a whole presentation, but as far as auditing your EVARs and props and all of that goes, Components is also a really important thing to stay on top of. So like in this workspace, if you go to the help, and then performance. So if your reports are running slowly, this handy dandy tool will give you some hints sometimes as to why. It exists in CJA as well. But frequently used components or available components, third from the bottom currently, that's one of the really common killers. That surprise, just having components like segments, calculated metrics, and dates and things like that. Having a whole bunch of them, whether you're touching them or not, can really slow down your workspace. I've seen some where they had 6,000 or more available components, and then every single report they tried to run would take a minute or longer to load, or would just time out altogether. So this is a really handy tool. And then go ahead and close this out. And if you go to the components menu, so let's go look at our segments, for instance. And yeah, good call, saving. All right, so a couple of things about this interface. One is in the lower left where it says other filters. Or maybe it's under owners, I'm trying to remember. Yeah, it must
I
be the
might
other.
not have the
Yeah,
admin
if
access
you're an
to show.
admin, then you can do that to show all. So by default, you don't actually see them all. It's one of the weirdest reverse filters in UIs that I've seen, where in order to get unfiltered data, you have to apply a filter. But that's the way to see all of them. And then if in the upper right corner where there's the gear, yeah. Oh, I wonder if because you're not an admin, we can't see it here. Because the other thing that I did not know existed until an Adobe person pointed it out to me, and maybe you have to be an admin to see it, is there's often a checkbox here for used in, and you can add another column that lets you know how many components that segment or how many workspaces, how many times it's used elsewhere. So if you, this is really lame to demo because apparently we don't have the right access rights to see it in this demo report suite anyways. But if you turn that column on, then you can spot which things exist that aren't being used at all. And mind you, it can be a little misleading because it says, this segment's only used in one component and that component is a calculated metric. You'd have to chase it through and see that, oh, that calculated metric is used in, 200 places. So it you still have to do a little bit of chasing it through and seeing what's used where, but this can be a really great way of seeing stuff that's not being used anywhere and helping clean that up to get your workspace performance better. And there you go. There's my skill exchange presentation.
That's awesome. They also have, like, again, if you're an admin or whatever, they have last used.
Yeah.
So you see what things were used in, but also last used, like what things were used recently, to make sure you're, again, not delete anything or taking an audit of what people are currently using. I was trying to take a screenshot and post it in the chat of, like my own instance, but
does it not let you do?
Yeah. But yeah, if you click on one of those buttons, so you can see, okay, those are all checked marks. So those, like, if you uncheck date modified, that's going to go away from that screen, right? If you check used in or last used, it's just going to add columns to your view. So it'll, like that just did. So that's, just a helpful way. And it'll say like used in one component or 45 components or 6 components. So like my one that I'm looking right now with 45 components, like, I probably shouldn't touch that. Probably should not delete it, but you can click on it'll say like 45 components, and then you can click on that and it'll say like, here are all the projects it's used in, and it'll pull up that whole list of projects.
Can I take over the screen share for
Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe we can demo that.
All right, just Oh, I don't know if it's going to let me without, because I have to give it permission to share, and that sometimes makes you reboot Chrome altogether, but let's see.
If it doesn't work
Sorry,
for
you can keep talking. I was just gonna try to pull it
yeah,
open.
if it doesn't work for you, I can share it.
You have a demo enough shareable for public consumption. Yeah, I can't show PlayStation stuff, but I can show my own little report suite stuff. Yeah, I'd have to reopen Chrome.
Okay, let me try it on my side.
Maybe it's worth a shot though.
I could try. Okay, so these are all, you know, different segments we have. If you go here, you'll see this used in and last used. So I, you know, click that and I click on this 45 components guide. It's going to give me 45 projects. And then it's going to link here with all the different projects it's used in. So like, you know, I'm probably not going to touch the 45 projects one, but like if I wanted to clean up or delete like this one, like, oh, okay, it's only used in one component. Let me go see which one that is. Maybe I can go talk to the owner of that workspace or something like that. So yeah, great tip.
Well, a part of that maintenance that you can be doing, unfortunately, they still haven't given us a really good way to manage tags in one single place. However, the one thing that always bothers me is that in many things, we don't, a lot of people don't have a good discipline around descriptions and tags within their components. You can go into a component and you'll have great title and all that stuff. But thing is you'll open it up and it's like, what is this thing? It doesn't describe what it is, and then there's no tags associated to it either. And so I've gone into a number of different places now, and it's like you've got maybe half the components. And it's like, well, we're down a journey, we got to get things going, and it's like, hello, did you know that it takes maybe 10 or 15 more seconds to go ahead and describe what that thing is, and then add a few more tags, and the tags make it so freaking easy to find your stuff later. In fact, group it well, and it's like discipline, just a little bit more discipline around your stuff, and you'd be amazed how quickly you can group your things. And you can also, like, because when somebody comes in behind you and they're like, what the heck is this thing, and you actually took the time just to describe it, because somebody will say, it's like, well, you know, I can go back and do that later. There is no such thing.
Yeah I think my favorite is when people add descriptions, but like the name of the variable will be internal banner click, and the description will be the number of times an internal banner was clicked, and you're like, oh, thanks for that. But what I really like including is, you know, best used with evar X, or you know, more contextual information, or things that wouldn't otherwise be easily derived from the name. Goes a long way.
I mean, the business question is great to have in your description, but also like, and I mean, you know, the whatchamacallit, the tool that they added so that you can see relationships.
Data dictionary.
The data dictionary. Thank you. My brain doesn't like to work in the afternoon either. I think we talked about that earlier. But anyway, the data dictionary is helpful, you know, with those kinds of things, but you can't always depend on it. So if you can add some of those things in the description, you're going to help yourself out a heck of a lot later.
And those descriptions are what shows up if a user clicks on the little like tooltip next to.
Yeah. We just had that fixed, by the way. Adobe fixed that for us.
Yay.
It wasn't working. So yeah, we just had that fixed again. But think about it. I mean, if you're a programmer, it's kind of like commenting in your your program, you know?
I like to do, because, you know, sometimes you need to repurpose things, right? Because you only have 100, 250 or whatever. And so like, if one has run its course, you no longer need it. Well, you might repurpose it. So if we do that, we make sure to put in the description, like from this date to this date, this data was this. On this date, it changed over to this new thing. you know, and now that's what it's used for. Like we changed the name, but
Or if you decide to wait the 3 years for it to like.
right.
And until you realize you have one orphan page that's still setting it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. We also like to, in our descriptions, give examples of where it's used. Like, okay, this is a recommended car banner. Common places where you can find this are like the car page or, you know, whatever. Like,
Yeah.
we not necessarily try to be exhaustive, because then you get outdated pretty quickly. It's hard to keep up and maintain, but like give people examples of how it's used, or like what page they could see this in action on to get a flavor of it.
You could even add this was last validated or confirmed or whatever on, you know, January 2025 to say somebody confirmed we still use this data and it is still working.
That's a great tip. Yep. Until your team looks really bad when it's 2 years ago. Sorry. Yep.
All right. Anyone else have any impromptu tips or skill exchange presentations that never became a real thing, or
But Jen, that could be like even just a great like blog post, you know.
yeah,
A few
I
screenshots. Like,
know.
yeah. You know, with all the free time
long
all of
list.
us have, but yeah.
Well, I'll throw out there, because it's been my project of the month. PlayStation, I don't know. Do I have to go through legal to even say this bit out loud? PlayStation has a lot of data. Like I've worked in many, many Adobe report suites and orgs, and I have never seen things up in the billions this regularly, and it is slowing things down in our reporting. So we're looking at how to improve that. Now this is in CJA, not analytics. So that's part of why I showed that performance thing. That's in CJA as well. I've been looking at that performance debugger a lot, but we discovered that the filters on your data view itself, the thing that like kind of defines what comes into that data view, it's all built on segments. Adobe changed the names around. They were called filters, now they're segments again. That those also have a big impact potentially on performance. So let me see if I can pull up a link, but there's some good Adobe documentation that walks through, if you are building segments, if you use contains instead of equals, that will be slower than just using equals. And there's this whole long list of ways that you can optimize and improve the amount of time that it takes for your reports to load.
Yeah.
I will also say on the data collection side, if your launch properties take a long time to build, that is also tied to complexity and how many rules that you have and how many data elements you have. And if you have 400 rules in data collection tags, then it's probably going to take a long, long time to load. So multiple reasons to govern carefully in there. Oh, well, Jeff had to drop. I suspect others will have to as well. We're almost at time. But let me see if I can pull up that link. Sorry, if my dogs would stop barking, then I can come back and tell you.
Actually, we can't hear them, so it's doing.
Oh, that's so good to hear, because to me it is loud and annoying. But yeah, just posted a link for optimizing performance in Workspace, and a lot of that stuff applies to analytics as well as CJA, even if it is more CJA geared.
Yeah, those tips have always been really helpful. Things, just like minimizing the panels, using equals instead of contains, not, I've found this really helpful, and it does make a difference, especially if you have like a really big dashboard with a lot of different stuff going on. So.
Yep.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thanks, guys. I think it's been a good session. We could probably wrap it up. Thanks,
Indeed,
Mandy, for handling all the admin stuff. Please feel free to reach out to any of us on LinkedIn or sign up for the next office hours. We love questions in advance because that gives us time to prepare good answers for them, but also makes sure we're answering the things you guys are wondering about or passionate about. So look for the next invite in September, and please feel free to submit questions. And you can also find us on Experience Living.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone.
And thanks, Catherine, for driving. I appreciate it.